All right. Welcome to episode 61 of the Jake Blanchard podcast, brought to you in part by our friends at Stream to See. They were voted the #1 mineral-based sunscreen by Rolling Stone magazine. They're out there changing the world, not just helping your body to keep all that junk that your skin absorbs out of it, but they are helping to better preserve our rivers, lakes, and oceans. Check them out at Stream, the number 2, CSEA.com. Podcast listeners using the code JBP at checkout get 10% off their order. Also, another quick shout out, Fellowship brand premium men's grooming products are organic, natural, oils, balms, butters for the hair on your face. And they also make a tattoo balm that I use daily. It's the best thing on the market, in my opinion. JBP at checkout gets you 10% your order as well. Fellowshipbrand.com. My guest today is Jarrod Hanning. He's an award-winning speaker. He's been featured on ABC Nightline. He has done 4 TedX talks related to human performance. He specializes in a Nobel nominated process that teaches you how to think at a higher level. He's the owner of Mindset Performance, and he has spent over a decade diving deep into the human brain, human performance, and thinking patterns that can identify blind spots and help people to your dog freaked me out, man. And help people obtain their best selves. He's an author of The Thinking Patterns of Success: How 7-Figure Earners Get More Done with Less Effort. And Jarrod, you got a cat in your hand, my man. Welcome you and your cat to the podcast.
Glad to be here. Tigger here. Normally is sleeping at this hour, but now he won't leave me alone. So he's going to get some pets while we hash it out about thinking patterns.
No, I love it, man. And like I said, I'm reading that intro. I look up and you got some kind of thing in your hand. It kind of caught me for a second. So apologies there. Hey, man, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. As I was getting ready and as I was preparing, I was deep diving into Jarrod here. I stumbled across a handful of facts. Let me read them now. You're a licensed pilot. You're a licensed home builder. You're a licensed skydiver. You're an accomplished archer. You're a 5-ball juggler. You have played 7 instruments and 14 different symphonies. And there's actually more stuff there as well. But those were kind of the major highlights that I pulled out about you. You seem to stay pretty busy, Jarrod. What's going on with all of that mess? Let's get a little background on you here.
What drives the mess? When I remember when I was in high school, I was really bored. Bored was an understatement. I hated it so bad that I thought about just dropping out. Well, how about I just not finish? I mean, I'm still going to work and eat and live. What's the worst that could happen? And if I go to college, I'll just get a GED or something. And I remember going to the school counselor and I was like, yeah, no. This no bueno. And the counselor goes, well, hold on, let me check something. You know what? You've got enough credits. You could just graduate now. I was like, what? That's an option? I could just graduate now? Yes, sign me up. I'll take the graduate now option. And I graduated a year early, but one of the things that made that possible is that I didn't take study hall in high school. I just took classes that were worth something, and that added up over time. So the question to the collection of weirdities like skydiving and flying and motorcycles and helicopters and hang gliding and archery and all that stuff is that once a year I pick up a new challenge, a new skill. Can I learn how to do this thing? And I just go to work chipping away at it. And usually after I chip away at it, I get bored with it and I want to go learn a new one. So the years go by and the skills add up.
That's incredible, man. That's what an important early takeaway from our discussion, which is, the curiosity itch that you recognize that you have and your ability to scratch it. It seems like some hobbies like juggling, probably low barriers to entry, big time commitment, flying. Yeah, financially, that's more of a time commitment. It takes more. So how do you plan on, the skill that you want to do? Do you just kind of follow your heart there? Or do you have a long bucket list? What's that process like?
Just pick a new one. Here in a couple of weeks, I'll be getting my scuba diving certification. My dad, he took me scuba diving as a kid, and I just never got back to it. So this is kind of a way to spend time with my dad, so to speak. There is a list, but I don't like go and order the list. It's like, hey, what do I want to learn how to do this year? You're right. Skydiving, not skydiving, but flying does take, it's 40 hours to get your license where you can legally carry passengers, but it's only about 7 or 8 hours before you can be cleared to fly by yourself anywhere. But regardless, I mean, I did get the license and all of that stuff. There was one you were mentioning though, juggling though, 3 balls. Yes. 3 balls is easy. I think probably 80% of the population could learn to juggle 3 balls in about 15 minutes, provide they learn in the correct order. 5 balls. So if 3 balls on a scale of 1 to 10, if that is a difficulty level of, I don't know what we want to say, like a 6 or something. I mean, most anybody can learn to do that. 5 balls is like a 47. It is orders of magnitude harder. There's no comparison between 3 and 5. It's, are you freaking kidding me? Now, to my chagrin, I have been working on 5 balls since I was 15 years old. I'm 47 now. And my record is 100 consecutive throws. That's the most I've ever done with 5 balls.
It seems like a lot.
It is a lot. It's enough for me to say, hey, I've done it. I think I've mastered this now. People that actually juggle, they can add a new ball every year. So when they started at 15, they were doing 5 at 16. I apparently am just not cut out for juggling.
Yeah, no, but it's still, the tip of the hat for your curiosity and for your, the discipline to take the time and at least exhibit some sort of mastery around the skill set. But my understanding with your career is that you spent the majority of the first part of your career being a professional musician.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So maybe take me through that path. So you're in high school, you're going, I can graduate early. And then how did you pick the career path of blowing wind into an instrument?
In a way, I didn't. I was leaving high school, going into college. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I wanted to take stuff apart and fix it and redesign it and make it better and invent. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I loved that world. And I was willing to even learn how to get better at math to do it. But my family, for whatever reason, wasn't sophisticated, didn't have money. So not only did we not have the money, but we apparently weren't capable of filling out the paperwork needed to get scholarships and grants to afford to be a mechanical engineer. And the music department was like, hey, we've got money and we've got people that'll fill that paperwork out for you. Just come be a music major. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll be a music major. That's free college. And I did that. And ironically, I couldn't get away with it because after that, I left music and I went into construction. I was building houses and remodeling houses for like 5 years. And then after that, I went back, master's degree. The master's degree, that college was like, hey, free money. Come get your master's degree. We'll pay you to play. It's like, okay, fine. I guess I'm back in music. And at that point, it kind of stuck. And I spent about 20 years, was principal viola with the South Carolina Philharmonic. And yeah, I was full-time classical music for about 20 years.
So what is it like being in an orchestra? Now, 2 decades in an orchestra is quite a long time, but are you just practicing every day, or do you have to have, is it your full income comes in from being in the orchestra, or do you have to do other things to kind of supplement? Like what's it like?
Different levels. The level that I was at, even though it was, you could say, the state orchestra because it's in the capital city, this was only $1 million budget. So everybody had something else. They had a regular job. They taught public school. They taught at the university. Or at that time, there was a portion of us that taught private music lessons. And so if I wasn't with the symphony, I was playing weddings or teaching music lessons. But that's because we were at a low level. If you go up the next level to a full-time orchestra, like Charleston Symphony or Charlotte Symphony or Nashville Orchestra, something like that, it pays barely enough. Like if you're willing to eat ramen noodles and have a roommate, you too can survive on this salary. So it does pay enough, but they still have to supplement it with private lessons, teaching lessons, and weddings. And then you go to the next level above that, which would be like Atlanta, Cincinnati, Cleveland. That pays enough that you can comfortably support a family. But those jobs, of course, are a lot harder. They might have one opening every 5 years in your specific instrument, and 300 people show up for that one job. It's very, very difficult to get in. I didn't want to play in a symphony that bad, so I was happy to play with my local orchestra and call it a day.
That's wonderful. And then about a decade ago, you shifted your attention toward high performance coaching and mindset, and this is really interesting framework that I cannot wait to unpack. So, like, let's do that now. Like, let's start talking about mind scan or
Let's go.
or mindset performance. And if you could kind of illustrate this journey a little bit for us about how you shifted, or how that music career started turning into this, this career around performance coaching.
Yeah, the connection was you are using more different parts of your brain when you are creating music than any other activity. Whether you are clapping your hands to the radio or singing in the shower, in that moment, you're using more different sections of your brain. This is a sharp contrast with, say, athletic performance, where the better your body is performing athletically, the less of your brain you're using. Your brain actually quiets down, enters a meditative state, so it doesn't steal glucose that needs to be going to the muscles. This doesn't mean music is better. It's just a different way of using your brain. And so while I was in music, I was going and giving speeches in the corporate world, teaching people how to access different parts of their brain on demand. And then when I left music full time, it was just a natural shift to go into mindset. The beauty of the mindset work, especially if you are self-employed and entrepreneur, regardless of the wall that you keep hitting, whether it's raising funding or selling customers at a higher ticket or getting the right employees, whatever it is you keep running up against, you are only one thought away from your next breakthrough. So being able to access different parts of your brain on demand is kind of handy.
Yeah. Well, obviously if I've seen some statistics out there that like humans only access 10% of their brain, or those types of things. Like what's your perspective on some of that literature, or some of those maybe commonly espoused expressions? Is there some truth to it? Is there like what's your perspective?
My perspective on the 10% analogy is it would be better worded. Humans only use 10% of their potential. But when we do like MRI studies and scans, you're using all of your brain all the time. You might have room to optimize it. You might have room to form new neural networks and discard old networks. They'll kind of clear out some head trash. But you're kind of using most of your brain already. It's just a matter of learning how to use it in more optimized thinking patterns.
Okay. And then how do you help people do that through mindset performance?
Well, I like to say we are a mindset gym, and this is different from a life coach. When you go see a life coach, they will say something like, "Oh, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think you should do?"
Yeah.
Well, what you think you should do is kind of what has you in that situation to start with. On the other hand, if you go to hire a strength coach because you want to run faster, or pick up more weight, or lose weight, whatever you're trying to do with weight, they don't say, "What exercise do you think you should do today?" They say, "Do 2 of these, do 3 of these, come back to me tomorrow." There's no guesswork, and you get the results. Actually, all you have to do is get your lazy butt to the gym. Do 2 of these, do 3 of these, come back tomorrow. Done. It is that simple and that clear. So in my work, Mindset Performance, we start by mapping out your current thinking patterns. We use a Nobel nominated process called the mind scan. This allows you to get out of your head onto the paper, and you can see right away where your next breakthrough lies in about 10 minutes. And then we go to work in the gym, building those new connections.
I love it. And, I went through this process. You sent this to me, I don't know, maybe it was a month and a half ago, something like that, maybe 2 months ago that you and I connected around this. And then we did a follow-up consultation. I was very surprised in how accurate it was in kind of outlining my current state, or I guess where I lean in my patterns of thought. And so like maybe you can kind of explain some of the categories that are associated with this, and then what like kind of that overlay of taking a mind scan gives you a feel for.
Uh, Different ways of thinking. And the problem with a way of thinking is that it makes sense to you. It seems like a good idea. Some people, it makes a lot of sense to them that taking action will get results. And so because of that, if you want more results in your life, you need to take more action. I mean, how are you supposed to argue with that? That makes a lot of sense. Action gets results. So if you want more results, you should take more action. But what happens is that just causes your brain to look for action to take, because that's how your brain solves problems. That's how it makes sense of the world. And this is why people that pride themselves the most in being achievers, hustlers, grinders, getter-doners, they always have more on their to-do list than they have time to get done. Working harder and faster doesn't clear it up. And it's this feeling of spending more and more energy spinning your wheels, because day after day after day, your to-do list is the same. It doesn't like go away. There's never enough time. There's never enough resources. It's always having to go, 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 go. And because it makes so much sense that action gets results, it's very easy to stay in that illusion. Well, I just need to work a little bit harder. Well, I just need to work a little bit. Well, next week's going to be different. And it becomes very hard to tell the truth that you've been saying that for the past 3 years. Maybe working harder isn't the answer. There's other ways of thinking that say how people feel is what's most important. And on the surface, this makes a lot of sense, because if people aren't motivated, if they aren't feeling good, if they aren't in alignment, they tend to not perform as well. We got to stay on them. And so for these individuals who solve problems by honoring how people feel, they are very good at like being the hostess of the party. They're very good at sales. They build relationships and rapport. They close people naturally so well. Life with people works great for them. They're incredible managers. They're incredible leaders, incredible salesmen. They can make a ton of money. On the other side, they're constantly having to reinvent the wheel because their life is a chaotic mess. There is no sense of order or organization, and they waste a colossal amount of time reinventing things and redoing things, because their brain solves problems through people, not through process. So maybe process is the answer. Well, people that tend to value process the most are kind of pedantic assholes. So like, no matter how right they are that this is the most efficient way to do it, nobody wants to work with them. So they don't get anything done. They make great CPAs, they make great accountants, but they are terrible at working with people. So no matter how right they are that this is the most efficient way that's going to make everybody the most money, nothing happens. And that's the pickle. The things that make the most sense to us, the things that feel the best, are also the things that are keeping us from doing what life is calling us to. So in order to think at a higher level and to get out of the weeds, we got to get your thinking patterns mapped out. That's where we can see where the blind spots are that are tripping you up. And now you can start thinking at a higher level with a clear roadmap to what's possible.
So then your role is to start countermeasuring like, I don't want to say areas of deficiency, but like people get set in their ways over time as they continue to, if they're not sitting beside themselves and trying to solve these types of problems or reinvent themselves, they probably keep digging that trench deeper and deeper and deeper over time with like who they are and how they get outcomes, et cetera. Right. So like your role, then you shine the flashlight on it, say, this is what we got. How do you help bridge that gap in a way that doesn't disrupt their identity or sense of self? Or like, how do you prep somebody for these types of conversations where you're like, you're being a pedantic asshole, Mr. Process Person. Like, let's cross this bridge and bring in some more feeling into the conversation. What's that look like?
What does it look like? Riding a bicycle. When you are 5 years old and they take off the training wheels and you're wobbly, you don't have it yet, you keep putting a foot down, you're doing the best you can with what you have to work with. And in that moment, your crazy Aunt Jenny comes by with some advice. And crazy Aunt Jenny goes, what you need to do is go faster, because when you go faster, it's easier to balance. And your 5-year-old brain goes, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. if I can't balance going slow, going fast is just going to make it worse. It's like, this is why they call her Crazy Aunt Jenny. Well, one day you go faster. Maybe your dad pushes you, maybe you go downhill, you go faster. And in that moment that you go faster, you feel balance in your body. As soon as your body feels the shift, and this is a felt experience, you don't think how to ride a bicycle. You don't believe how to ride a bicycle, right? You don't understand how to ride a bicycle. It happens in your body. It's a felt shift. As soon as that felt shift happens, then your brain comes online with a higher level of thinking and goes, oh, now I understand. Now I get what Crazy Aunt Jenny was saying. Here is the deal. Before you felt the difference, no amount of explanation made a difference. After you felt the difference, no amount of explanation was needed. That's what we do in the Mindset Gym. There is no sense trying to tell you how to think at a higher level, trying to tell you how to think from somebody else's perspective. It's a complete waste of time, because until your body feels the shift, nothing going in your head is going to make a difference. So what we do is we put you on little bitty bicycles. These are mindset push-ups that the act of resisting that puzzle, pushing against that process and that problem, gives your brain what it needs to rewire the network so that it can access different resources, different ways of thinking, different intelligence patterns. And that's what gets your head out of the weeds so you can see the whole picture. And now there's no mystery how to get out of the maze.
So you just said this term twice, which was mindset push-up. It might be difficult to articulate exactly what that is, but I am so curious in like how you're defining little tiny bicycles and mindset push-ups right now.
Okay, mindset push-ups.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So a push-up is a physical process that causes your body to rewire itself in response. It changes your nervous system. It changes your chemistry. Your body grows muscle, expends lactic acid faster by doing this physical process. The bicycle is a physical experience that causes your brain to rewire itself in response to this new stimuli. So an example of a mindset push-up, working with an entrepreneur. This is the at a zero problem. Working with an entrepreneur, and let's say that they track their growth by whatever, 10 clients a month. They're serving high ticket clients, and they see 10 of them a month. And that's how they measure their business, not in terms of dollars, but in terms of people, clients that they work with. Okay, fine. 10 a month. What would it look like for you to be serving 100 a month? And they're like, oh man, that would be great. Okay, fine. But what would that look like? What would need to be in place to make that happen? And then they go to work building that out. We have this conversation. They're like, okay, well, I would have to have 2 assistants instead of 1. I would have to have these processes built out instead of these I have here. I would have to use this instead of that, and this instead of that, and this and that. I have to train these people and I have to work with this. So they get this big machine all built out that would allow them to serve 100 clients a month instead of 10. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Now, what would it look like for you to go from 10 a month to 100 a month in the next 30 days? That can't be done. That's impossible. Well, I know it feels that way, but what would it look like for you to go from 10 to 100 in 30 days? Now that you know you've built out what it takes to serve 100, and we're being realistic, they're really going to need this, and they're really going to need this, and I can't do this, and I only have this much time. Okay, fine. What does it look like to do that in 30 days instead of over the next 2 years? How would you build that in 30 days? And they're like, well, it can't be done.
That doesn't matter.
What's that?
I said, but that's not the part that you're interested in, right? Like what you're really interested in is the thought experiment around like how do you organize your life in that way? Like take action quickly, or I guess I'm following, but I'm not following from the standpoint of you've given an assignment. Yes, I built out the outline of it. Then you time collapse it to make it like really uncomfortable. And is working through that discomfort the push-up then, or is actually building out the plan?
Starts.
Okay.
That's where it starts. We now have resistance. And the resistance is it can't be done. It's impossible. Okay, great. Now we can get started. all that tells us is your current way of thinking won't solve that problem. That's all it tells us. We finally got to the end of you thinking you're smart enough and you can figure it out and you can do it. Great, because you can't do this. And at the same time, part of you knows that there are people all across the world who do this every month. So let's take a look, pull out our magic wand. How could it be done? How could it be done to go from 10 to 100 in 30 days? They're like, it's impossible, because right now I'm closing clients 1 out of 3 conversations. In order to serve 100 of them, I would have to have 300 conversations in a month to even close 100 of them. There's not that much. You're right. You're right. All that tells us is your strategy isn't going to get us there. So how could it be done? And they're at the limits. They're like, well, I don't know. Right. Exactly. That's the point of the exercise. We got to get to the end of the view before we can start thinking at another level. How could it be done? Well, I don't have enough time. Okay. Do you know somebody who does? Yeah. What if we enrolled them to help us? Could it be done? Could we divide the time? Yeah, we could do it that way. Okay, great. How else could it be done? I don't know. What if instead of closing people one-on-one, you started closing people one on a group? Give a speech to an audience of 3,000 people. Present your offer in front of 3,000 people. And in 1 hour, you can close 100 of them in 1 hour instead of 300 hours of one-on-one calls. Yeah. Could you do this through a podcast or a speech or a book or an article? Could we do this through advertising? Could we do this through a joint venture? You've got a friend. They've got 100,000 people on their email list. Could you guys work together to create an offer that would make sense to your friend and you and the people you're serving at the same time? And now they're thinking, okay, these are ways that it could happen. It really could be done that way. And then we got to look at, okay, what about the process? And well, yeah, but somebody's going to have to teach them and serve them and deliver this. And I can't. Okay, how could it be done? How could, in the next 30 days, you have enough people to serve your clients and enough systems put together to serve them? In the next 30 days, how could that be done? Now we got to get outside their thinking. Then they start thinking about partnering with people and bartering with people and trading with people and consulting with people and joint ventures. And all of those could do it. And this is all made possible without using their lack of resources. Well, I don't have enough money to hire those people. Okay, how else can we compensate them? How else can we pay for them? Well, I don't have enough money to pay for the ads. Okay, fine. How else can we reach the people? Does it cost you money to do podcasts? Does it cost you money to speak on the stage? And we start getting to other ways to solve this problem. And at the end of that, they have finally come to a place where they see on paper that we're not blowing smoke. This realistically can be done in their situation in 30 days. Now what's left? Fear. They're not ready to grow that fast. They're not ready to step out to the bigger stage and play at a higher level.
What if I was successful? What if I got exactly what I wanted, right? I mean, that's the challenge. That's when you break down all those barriers that are keeping you from doing it, then you have to deal with the reality of what happens if I'm successful.
And they go into the exercise thinking the problem is they don't have the resources they need. But at the end of the exercise, they realize it's just the fear.
So you've been doing this for a number of years now. Like, is this generally pretty accurate? Do you ever run into people that are like, this thing didn't hit me at all? Like, I don't agree with, what this current state diagnosis of my thinking patterns are, and how might you address that?
So with the mind scan is not a panacea. It is not for everyone. It is not perfect. I am not perfect. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's just not a right fit. That happens about 1 in 100 people that take the mind scan. Now, 30 in 100 people are in tears because they find it so emotionally meaningful. But there is that 1 in 100 that's like, no, that's not me at all. I'm not like that at all. Okay. How long did you spend going through the assessment? They're like, oh, well, I decide things very intuitively. It only took me 5 minutes. Interesting. how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
Seems like you kind of fast this.
Yeah.
So that's one reason they don't spend enough time with it. Now let's get to the second category where they did spend enough time. They spent about 15 minutes really hurting their brain to sort these distinctions out. They get to the end of that. They're like, no, that's not me at all. I'm like, okay, well, just describe how you feel about this topic that we're talking about here. Maybe we're talking about emotions and other people's emotions or something like that. And they will go on to describe the exact thing the mind scan reveals, just in different words. So this isn't an issue that the mind scan isn't accurate. It's an issue that they aren't comfortable being seen that way, which goes back to it's not for everyone.
Yeah. And so this process, the science or the literature that backs it, obviously, in the intro, I touched on that it was Nobel nominated process. You also touched on that as well. What the heck does that mean? Like, what are we really talking about here? Just, is this a bunch of psychologists that are just like nominating each other, or is this got some, national clout that universities teach? Like, what's this like?
That's an important distinction. I'm glad you brought it up. Nominated does not mean awarded.
Right.
It just means it met the list of credentials to get on the docket.
Okay.
That's all it means. Robert Hartman in the 1950s sussed out this way of measuring how our brains make sense of the world. And what he found was the most stable thing is values. What your brain says is valuable in the world. Is it results? Is it how people feel? Is it that things are orderly? How does your brain value what's important? And by teasing that out, it gives us a really clear picture of how your brain solves problems. And with that, we're able to see blind spots, strengths, and weaknesses that we could be leveraging differently.
That's awesome. And so you work in groups or one-on-one with clients in this space, or like how are people reaching out to you and going through this coaching? And then how long do you work with them? I mean, is it like a very specific, like 8-week program? Is it for the rest of their life? Like, how do you gauge those things?
The core curriculum in the Mindset Gym, the Mindset Push-Ups, takes 12 weeks to go through the rotation of all the exercise and build out the new networks in the different areas of thinking. People find me through speaking from the stage, writing articles, doing virtual summits, going to business meetings, podcasting. They just find me. Clients recommend me. Hey, this is who I used. You should do that. But yeah, it takes about 3 weeks to master the different thinking patterns. 3 months to master the different thinking patterns.
And then you've got a book as well. What was the kind of the genesis for writing that book? Is it really in line with the program that you've created, or is it kind of tangentially related around the same, like,
it's the same. It's effectively the Mindset Push-Ups written out in written form. But the thinking patterns of success.
Yeah.
And they can go to the website. They can grab a executive summary for free. Takes you through all the core concepts right there on the website, mindsetperformance.co.
And so how has putting your focus and attention into this area of human performance changed you and changed your lenses in which you view the world?
One of the problems I had before I was introduced to the mind scan, before I did the mindset push-ups myself, one of the problems I had was that clients would work with me and they would say, "Oh my gosh, you're the greatest. You're so good. You're so knowledgeable, man. You've changed everything. You're the best, blah, 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 blah." But at the end of the day, they didn't actually refer me to other clients. It's like, well, that's weird. Why are you making it a point to go out of your way to say you think I'm doing a great job, but you don't actually refer me? And this was baffling to me. Like, what's going on? Now I have a situation where my clients refer me to higher paying deals, and they even go ahead and close the deals for me. And what changed was one of the measurements that came out of my mind scan. Now, this isn't going to be the same for everybody, but what my brain was doing at the time is it was prioritizing getting results in the world over how people felt. So I might have been aware how the other person was feeling emotionally. I just didn't have a value. It wasn't important to me, their emotional state. What was important to me is, do we get results? So in that situation, somebody might be talking to me, telling me their story. And while they're talking, the back of my head, there's this voice that's like, yeah, I know how you feel. I just don't care. Because my brain was skipping ahead in the conversation to what needed to change, what needed to be done differently. Well, the thing is, people don't remember what you did for them. They remember how you made them feel in the process. And this is why you have friends that will talk about the realtor or insurance agent or whatever, the professional that cost them money, that royally screwed them over. And at the same time, that same friend who tells this horrible story will still refer that professional to other clients, because we don't remember what they did. We remember how they made us feel. And there's something about that person that is really good at emotional bank deposits and high value relationships. When I learned that, when I started doing the mindset push-ups to rewire my brain to solve problems through emotional bank deposits, it flipped the script on my experience with my clients, which is why today they close deals for me because of how they feel in the process, not because of what I did for them.
So this is such an interesting world. There's a lot of noise and literature out there around high performance, mindset, all these types of things. And I have a lot of folks who are coaches or have written books or are in the space in some way, shape, or form. And I've have some folks that come on and say, hey, if you're not fucking getting after it 16 hours a day, nose to the grindstone, go, 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 you're not going to make it. Then I have other folks, and you might fall maybe closer into this camp, that's saying, hey, it's a lot about the way that you're organizing the world, processing information, and the way that you view, say, execution or feelings or process. Like, has your viewpoint on this evolved, or like, do you have a perspective on what it takes to become a high performer? Like, is it a mixture of both? Is it really honing in on maybe these blind spots and then fixing those first? Like, what's your perspective? I know everybody's different, but I'd love to entertain a fun conversation around this.
Whenever we talk to people that seem to have the touch of gold, the less they work, the more they make. Like a Richard Branson kind of person. He owns hundreds of companies and he spends his time playing, having fun, engaging with people. He oversees multi-million dollar projects. And at the same time, you could totally interrupt his meeting to tell him a story about your grandkids. And he's like, oh, cool. Thank you so much. Like he's present. This isn't a hustle and grinder type of person. And we all have had somebody like that in our life that seemed to have the touch of gold. The less they work, the more they make. Whenever we do a mind scan with that type of person, their thinking makes a very specific signature. Their brain solves problems in a very specific way. Whenever we talk to the hustler and grinders, the get things done, to burn the candle at both ends, their thinking makes a very specific signature. They are solving problems in a different way than the people that have a life of ease and relationships and fulfillment and connection and purpose. What I would say in response to people who say you need to hustle and grind and work 100 hours a week, like an Elon Musk or a Gary Vaynerchuk, I would just say, is that working? Like, does that work? Or is it producing the results? Do you have a sense of purpose and fulfillment? Do you have a sense of family and connection and friends and community involvement and social and hobby and self-expression and freedom and creativity? Or do you just have golden handcuffs? Now, even if all you have is golden handcuffs, is that working for you? Do you get a sense of purpose and fulfillment from working 100 hours a week? Does that work? If it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, maybe working harder isn't what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Jarrod, I think that the thing that the perspective that I hold right now is that at some point in your life, you really have to understand what it's like to work really hard. For some reason, I feel like that's a prerequisite. I feel like everyone has to kind of like cut their teeth or pay their dues or get that perspective of 12-hour work days, at least for a while, to build a muscle of like understanding what it's like to grind and get it done. But at some point in time, like if you just keep doing that, that's not sustainable. And that you really need to go and hack some of these different areas, specifically starting with yourself around how you work and what you want from a goals perspective, and how you start to bolt on some of these efficiencies and capabilities and self-awareness that you're talking about. Because I think there's two truths. And the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are wondering why they're not getting things in life. And it's likely because they're not working hard. But there's also the alternative, which is if you can clearly articulate what you want in life and work directly toward that, maybe you can bypass the 12-hour a day, 16-hour a day grind. So again, I kind of bounce around on this, but it's certainly something that's top of mind for me because we're all individuals. There's no right or wrong answer there. But anytime that I get an opportunity to talk to an accomplished professional like yourself in this space, it's great to add it to my quiver of perspective, if you will.
Just another vantage point. If where you're at, you can't see where you're going, yeah, try a new vantage point.
I love it.
Try it out.
I love it. Well, you got scuba diving coming up. You've got what else are you going to do after the scuba diving?
There is a chance that I'll get back to the backflip on a motorcycle. Not a motorcycle. I'm sorry, bicycle. Backflip on a bicycle. I was working on the backflip for the bicycle. I was practicing. Turns out it's not as simple as go really fast and hang on. It's not that simple. It's not like necessarily a backflip on the ground or trampoline or something like that. There are a lot of really, really, really small details going on. Anytime you watch the skateboarders, professional skateboarders, or BMX riders on a little track pumping around, notice that they never push. Like a BMX rider on his bicycle, he never pedals. And the skateboarder never puts a foot down to build momentum. It's just constant pumping up and down. A lot of little details. So anyway, I was working on that and working on, jumping up higher and higher and higher. And I got a concussion. I was dropping into one of the vertical bowls and my front tire rolled off the rim. And so I went from the very top to the very bottom. My face was the first thing that hit. I was out cold, and that had my brain in kind of a jumbled mess for about a year.
Oh, wow.
Meaning any aerobic activity, the extra blood flow would send my brain back into that concussive state. I actually missed a symphony concert. I was the principal viola, and my brain had changed the time in my head to a time that we had never played it. I have no idea, but so my brain was messed up, right? And then a year after that, so that 2 years after the incident, finally I was able to ride bikes normally. It's possible I might give it another go. After I get the scuba diving license, I might get back on my BMX bike and start pumping around again.
You're a savage, my man. Hey, let's as we're wrapping up here, let's shout out a couple other things again. Where's your website that people can find you on? Also, shout out your book again, any social media that we want to go find you on.
Mindsetperformance.co. If you have any interest in what your thinking patterns are or where they could be optimized, because you're only one thought away from your next breakthrough. Podcast is there. Executive summary for the book is there. Of course, you can also hit me up on the socials as well. Jarrod Hanning.
Perfect, man. And I actually have recorded a podcast with you. We did kind of a home and away here. So as you're checking out Jarrod's site, go ahead and find that podcast. He's going to be uploading it here in the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So, excited to have that out there with you as well. And dude, I'm just so honored to get to know cool and interesting people like you that are, offering different options for people to go and enhance their selves, the way that they think about things, the way they get things done. And then the underpinning of all this is happiness, right? Like if you can just get your hands around what's holding you back, and that you can implement a handful of things in your life that changes the way that you perceive the world and can drive you to a closer state of happiness. That's what so many of us are looking for. And, so cool that you offer a tool that's analytical and interesting, and that you're prescribing push-ups. And this is a whole new world to me. So again, thank you for doing a session with me and let me see, at least at a high level, how you work, and looking forward to hearing, how it's going in the next couple of months, man. Love to have you on again.
Yes, sir. We'll be in touch.
All right, brother. Take care.